Yo, we're going to talk about your diet. We're going to talk about how you got to put the cake down. All right. If you want to be less anxious, put the cake down, put the chips down. And you're probably thinking, how would what I eat affect how I feel mentally, right? And sometimes there's a correlation that it's not necessarily direct and it's less obvious to us. So we may not recognize that there's actually a correlation, right? And so if you're here for this video, I appreciate you being here. Welcome. And we're going to talk about this less obvious way of how your diet can actually help you feel less like shit when it comes to anxiety, overthinking, panic attacks, stress, any sort of body sensation you might be having, like sweating a lot or, whatever you might have that you're dealing with. So before I get into the list, if you like what you see on this channel, click that subscribe button. And if you like this video in particular, I would appreciate if you click that like button as well. All right, so we think of anxiety and we think of how can we help with this, right? And what comes to mind, right? We talk about therapy, we talk about maybe yoga, we talk about hitting the gym, and these are all great things. And all of these as separate entities for trying to combat anxiety are all super beneficial, right? And the way I see this is that there isn't a single catch-all short circuit solution for us to feel better. And unfortunately, we tend to be in a society where we look at ways of getting what we want quickly, right? And we have social media, we have a very fast-paced culture that is way faster than what we're used to, say, 20, 30 years ago. Heck, even potentially 10 years ago only. And so we have to remind ourselves that when it comes to anxiety and making progress, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. And this is something that is a process over time. It could be months, years, and being okay with whatever your pace might be. And so one of the ways that we can combat anxiety as an additional tool in our belt would be our diet. So let me give you an example. If you're like me and you eat a bunch of chips and guacamole, because that's my weakness, you're probably going to feel like shit. And think about it this way. If you're eating stuff that doesn't digest well in your body, or maybe you just had a major sugar binge, or you ate a bunch of food and now you're constipated or bloated, and you think back at those experiences, right? And say somebody's being irritable or you're stuck in traffic, whatever the scenario might be. Do you really think you're going to handle it as easily as, say, you went to the gym, you ate really well, you're well hydrated, you've been taking care of yourself, you've been keeping up on your diet? And to get into more specific examples, rather than this blanket, high-level thing that may not be believable to you, let me get into a little bit more detail, right? So one way you can combat anxiety through your diet is to get your inflammation down. For example, foods like turmeric are really good for that. If you combine ginger and turmeric and black pepper all together, they have a very strong anti-inflammatory effect. I used to have a lot of knee pain, and especially when I was more overweight. I can't tell you how many times I had to sit out from playing basketball because when I'd play, the game, I felt like I had shards of glass in my knee. And it was very common for me, especially after a workout, to have to take in a leave, to stretch, to put ice packs on my knees, to get physical therapy ever so often. And I can't tell you the last time I've had to do that. It's been years. There may have been an exception of 1 or 2 days in the last 4 or 5 years. And so one thing that really helps is I've found naturopathic ways of managing anxiety, and getting your inflammation down in your body is one thing you can do. So in addition to things like turmeric, pineapple's really good. So I had this really nasty injury when I was playing ball a couple of years ago, and I had this really bad grade 3 hamstring tear, and I was supposed to be out from the gym for a good 9 months or something like that. That's what the surgeon said. It was so bad he couldn't even operate on it. And really, I feel like my diet really sped up my recovery time. So I was able to get back to playing ball in about 5-6 months versus 9 to 12. And so one of the things I was really loading up on was pineapple, because it's got this enzyme. It's got this thing called bromelain in there where it can really help with recovery. If you've had an injury, you've got faster recovery rates due to this enzyme. It gets the inflammation down in your body. One thing you want to try and be better about too is all the refined sugar, all these refined grains. Things aren't really natural in nature like they used to be, right? We've got so many packaged goods now. Our foods are just really devoid of natural minerals now too, right? So things like sugar, I can't tell you how many times I can remember where when I used to really eat a lot of sweets, I would have the worst brain fog and I really couldn't focus. I had a hard time staying awake and I was just more irritable. And I found on those days in particular that it's more likely I'm gonna overthink, it's more likely I'm gonna be in my own head, I'm gonna worry about things more often than normal. And I also have a lot of supplements that I really like personally, and I'll put them in the link below if you wanna click on them. And in addition to that too, I talk about this in one of my chapters in my book, which is also in the description below. I give more of an exhaustive list of the things I eat, the supplements I take, some of the findings I found through research. Now, granted, I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. I'm just sharing with you that I've been on the opposite side. I've been on the opposite side of major social anxiety, debilitating anxiety. A random cough right there. And just turning my health around. I can't tell you how good I feel. I feel better than when I was in my early 20s. And some of the other things you can do with your diet too is you can eat a lot of berries. I know there's a lot of fad diets out there. You've got keto, you've got these diets talking about how, oh, don't eat fruit, don't do this, don't do this. And I know there's a lot of debate on this and it's a very heated topic and a lot of the research even goes back and forth. This is just my opinion. I personally believe that there's no single catch-all diet for everybody, and I believe a lot of what you should eat is how your ancestors ate, because also our early upbringing with our food, our genetics, you know, the genes we get from our parents. I believe our gut health is super important in that we have a natural biome where, depending on the individual, you're going to process some foods better than others. I'll give you an example, right? One of these things that you might find as an alternative to dairy for protein is hemp protein. Some people might really feel good after it. I can't digest it. I mean, it's just something that's different for everybody. And so it's really more about what your individualized goals are going to be, setting some objectives, right? Because here's the thing, no matter what your background is, no matter what diet you're on, we can probably agree that there's not going to be a diet out there where a bag of chips or a bunch of sweets are going to be good for you. And so with the diet, another thing you want to look out for too is it doesn't matter if you're diabetic or not. Well, it matters more if you are, but even if you're not diabetic, being mindful of foods that spike your sugar and your blood sugar levels, that really matters in terms of your mood, your cognition, how you feel. What I generally try and go for is I generally eat for the most part the same on a day-to-day basis around the same times. So I just try and go for foods that give me a steady energy boost instead of like a where it's just like mind explosion everywhere. You know, you've got this energy crash from, you know, 4 shots of espresso or a bunch of Oreo cookies. And then all of a sudden you're like, where am I? What am I gonna do? Don't talk to me right now. And now I'm hangry again. So you want to avoid that, right? You want to basically go for a, you know, nice and easy, generally eating, you know, like a similar diet in terms of your macros. And the reason why that's important too, right, is because if you make any sort of large modification to your diet, especially fiber intake, you can really be feeling that for a few days and feel just off in general, right? So that's just a glimpse into some of the stuff I do. I'll have more videos potentially on this in the future that might go a little bit more deep into this. And again, like I said, it's in my book in terms of a more exhaustive list. I have that in the description below and those supplements as well, as I promised. And look out for another video next week. I'll be on the beach and I'll talk to you guys later.